Introduction. Death on the Nile is a classic mystery novel by Agatha Christie, following Detective Hercule Poirot as he investigates a murder on board a luxurious Nile River steamer. With a cast of suspects, including the victim's wealthy husband, a famous actress, and a young heiress, Poirot must use his detective skills to uncover the truth and find the murderer. The story begins with the murder of heiress Lynette Ridgway, who is shot dead in her cabin. Poirot is on board and is tasked with solving the crime. With a range of clues and evidence, Poirot must navigate the complex relationships and motives of the suspects to find the killer. The investigation leads to a web of jealousy, hatred, and deceit, as Poirot uncovers more about the relationships and motives of the suspects. In the end, Poirot exposes the murderer, bringing justice to the victim and solving the mystery in his trademark style. Death on the Nile is a classic mystery that continues to captivate readers with its intricate plot and suspenseful twists and turns. The murder. The murder of Lynette Ridgway takes place on a Nile River steamer during her honeymoon with her husband, Simon Doyle. The murder is discovered by the steamer's staff and the passengers are immediately suspect of each other. The victim, Lynette, was shot in her cabin. As the investigation begins, Hercule Poirot, who is on board the steamer, gathers evidence and interviews the suspects. It is revealed that several people had motives for wanting Lynette dead, including Jacqueline de Belfort, Lynette's former best friend, and a wealthy businessman who was involved in a business dispute with her. Poirot also learns that Lynette had received several threatening letters before her death, adding to the belief that the murder was premeditated. The investigation uncovers secrets and motives of the suspects, including a secret engagement and a case of mistaken identity. The murder itself is described as a shocking and brutal act. Lynette was shot at close range, and the murderer made no attempt to conceal the crime. The passengers on the steamer are stunned and frightened by the murder, and the atmosphere on the river steamer is tense as Poirot works to solve the crime. Despite the initial panic and confusion, Poirot remains calm and methodical as he investigates the murder. He examines the crime scene, searches for clues, and conducts interviews with the suspects. The suspects. The murder of Lynette Ridgway on the Nile River steamer brings together a group of diverse and interesting suspects. Each of the suspects has a motive for wanting Lynette dead, and Hercule Poirot must navigate their relationships and secrets in order to uncover the truth. Simon Doyle. Simon is Lynette's husband and the main suspect in her murder. He is portrayed as a charming but immature young man who married Lynette for her money. Jacqueline de Belfort. Jacqueline was once Lynette's best friend, but their friendship ended when Lynette married Simon. Jacqueline is fiercely jealous of Lynette and is described as being unhinged and prone to outbursts. Canon Pennefather is a devout and respectable Anglican priest who is on the steamer with his sister. He is depicted as being gentle and kind, but also has a hidden side that is revealed through the investigation. Mrs. Allerton. She is a wealthy widow who is traveling on the steamer with her son, Tim. She is described as being haughty and aloof, and has a strained relationship with her son. Tim Allerton. Tim is Mrs. Allerton's son, and is depicted as being lazy and uninterested in his mother's wealth. He is portrayed as being easygoing and charming, but also has a mysterious and secretive side. Dr. Bauerstein is a renowned medical expert who is on the steamer to attend a conference. He is depicted as being cold and aloof, and has a reputation for being difficult to work with. Lady Fatima is a wealthy and eccentric woman who is on the steamer with her maid, Louise. She is described as being capricious and prone to outbursts, and is rumored to have a hidden past. Hercule Poirot. Poirot is the detective who is tasked with solving the murder of Lynette Ridgway. He is depicted as being methodical and meticulous, and is determined to find the truth behind the crime. Each of the suspects has a unique personality and set of motives that makes them intriguing and mysterious. Poirot must use his wit and intuition to determine which of them is the murderer and uncover the truth behind the crime. The investigation. The investigation into the murder of Lynette Ridgway on the Nile River steamer is a complex and challenging one for Detective Hercule Poirot. Throughout the investigation, Poirot must navigate the intricate relationships and motives of the suspects, and unravel the clues that will lead him to the truth. Interviews. Poirot begins his investigation by conducting a series of interviews with each of the suspects. He questions them about their motives, alibis, and relationships with the victim. Examination of the crime scene. Poirot carefully examines the crime scene, looking for any evidence that might indicate who the murderer is. He pays close attention to the details of the room and searches for any signs of struggle or foul play. Analysis of the evidence. Poirot meticulously analyzes all of the evidence that has been gathered, including the murder weapon, the victim's belongings, and any other physical evidence that has been found. Use of intuition. Poirot relies on his intuition and powers of observation to make connections between the suspects and the crime. He uses his understanding of human behavior to determine who is lying and who is telling the truth. Reconstruction of the crime. Poirot conducts a reconstruction of the crime, bringing the suspects together to act out what he believes happened on the night of the murder. This allows him to observe the suspects' reactions and gather more information about their actions. Confrontation with the suspects. Poirot confronts each of the suspects with the evidence that he has gathered, testing their alibis and challenging their stories. He uses this information to determine who is the most likely culprit. Clues and red herrings. Throughout the investigation, Poirot must navigate a series of clues and red herrings, and determine which of them are relevant to the case and which are simply distractions. The revelation. The revelation of the murderer in Death on the Nile is a dramatic and surprising twist in the story. As Poirot continues his investigation, he slowly begins to piece together the events of the night of the murder, and the truth about the culprit is finally revealed. The big revelation. In the climactic moment of the investigation, Poirot confronts the murderer with the evidence that he has gathered, and reveals the truth behind the crime. The killer is revealed to be none other than Lynette Ridgway, who murdered her best friend Jackie out of jealousy over her husband Simon Doyle. Surprising suspect. The revelation of Lynette as the murderer is a surprise to the reader and to the other characters in the story. Poirot has been able to piece together the events of the night of the murder and determine who the real culprit is. Confession. Lynette confesses to her crime, admitting to the events of the night of the murder and the motives behind her actions. Explanation of motive. Lynette's motive for the crime is revealed to be jealousy over Simon, who she had fallen in love with and wanted for herself. She murdered Jackie, who she saw as a rival for Simon's affections. Reaction of the suspects. The other suspects react to the revelation of Lynette as the murderer, some with shock and disbelief, others with anger and frustration. Aftermath of the revelation. The aftermath of the revelation of Lynette as the murderer is significant, as the truth about the crime is finally uncovered and justice is served. Poirot's triumph. Poirot's triumph in uncovering the truth is a testament to his skills as a detective, and his unwavering commitment to solving the crime. Closure for the victims. The revelation of Lynette as the murderer brings closure to the victims and their families, who have been seeking answers about the events of the night of the murder. The final piece of the puzzle. The revelation of Lynette as the murderer is the final piece of the puzzle in the investigation, bringing the story to a satisfying conclusion and tying up all of the loose ends. The revelation of Lynette Ridgway as the murderer in Death on the Nile is a dramatic and surprising twist that brings the investigation to a close and provides closure to the victims and their families. Through Poirot's unwavering commitment to solving the crime, the truth about the murderer is finally uncovered, and justice is served. Please subscribe and leave a comment.